He saw the two women sitting at the table, their heads together, talking quietly, and he paused, his eyes on them. As he watched, a young man came out of the kitchen, saw them, and smiled. The young man, whose name was Liam, was tall and handsome, with dark hair and blue eyes, and he walked over to the table and said something to the women, making them laugh. Liam then sat down, and the three of them began to talk, their conversation animated and lively. Arya, one of the women, was a small, delicate person with long blonde hair, and Serafina, the other, was tall and strong, with short brown hair. Liam and Arya were brother and sister, and Serafina was their cousin, who was visiting for the weekend. The three of them had grown up together, and they were very close. He saw that Liam was a good person, and he was glad that Arya had such a brother. He was also glad that she had a cousin like Serafina, who was so kind and thoughtful. He watched them for a while longer, and then he turned and walked away, a smile on his face. My goddess is the top student in her grade. I've been pursuing her for 2 years, only to find out that she's bound to a charming heartthrob system. The more I pursue her, the higher her college entrance exam scores get. She flirts with the top students from every class while keeping me on a string, but every time I feel like giving up, she gives me a little ambiguous hint. She actually said, "You're really great. Girls love guys like you, those quiet, caring, and devoted warm men. I'm just a little slow to warm up. Can you give me some time?" And so, like a fish that had bitten the hook, I was tugged around by her, pulled back and forth. Then, just before a mock exam, I actually heard a mechanical voice coming from her body. The voice said, "Congratulations, host. You've delayed Liam's exam so he could buy stationery for you. Charm value plus 13. For this mock exam, you will score 13 points higher than last time." At first I doubted if I was hearing things, but when the exam results came out, she actually scored 698 points, exactly 13 points higher than her last score of 685. Chapter 1. Arya is my desk mate, something I once dreamed of. She was a rebellious girl who turned her life around, and is now the school beauty of School A. When Arya first entered the school in the first year, she was just a girl who spent her days on makeup and dressing up, and her grades were at the bottom, often causing her parents to be called in. But not long after, her grades started rising steadily like a high-performing stock. She climbed all the way to the top of the grade, and she has never come down since. In the past 2 years, she hasn't taken a single step back, becoming the goddess in the hearts of both teachers and students at School A. Back in our first year, Arya was my desk mate. Because of her outstanding looks and her impeccable style, she received many love letters, breakfast deliveries, and desserts from boys. She would always act cute and call me Liam brother, asking me to share some of her breakfast and desserts that she couldn't finish. When her grades were poor, she would often cling to me after school, asking me to teach her how to solve problems. As time went on, I slowly started to like her. I always thought she was a girl who was both ambitious and cute, someone worthy of my affection, so when I heard a system notification coming from her, I didn't think much of it, and even thought I might have imagined it. But when the results came out with a 13-point improvement, I was stunned. Arya thought I was shocked by her results. She waved her hand in front of my face and proudly smiled, saying, "Aren't I amazing?" I gathered myself and tried to calm the turmoil in my heart, searching for words. "Arya, your grades are so good. Do you have any study secrets?" Hearing this, she lifted her chin, looking serious, and said, "Nope, I don't need any secret. It's all about hard work, step by step." If it were before, I might have agreed wholeheartedly, but now I found it a bit laughable. I lowered my head, flipping through a textbook I hadn't properly looked at in a long time, my mind a mess. Is that so? I almost forgot when did I become the one who was no longer number one in the grade. I used to be the so-called genius in the eyes of my teachers and classmates. Now, when did I start to accept those blank test papers and single-digit scores, even taking them for granted? Arya snatched the book out of my hands and boldly made a request. She said, "I broke my record again in this exam. Liam, let's go celebrate." I didn't say anything. Her voice became sweeter. "Let's invite our classmates too and go to that Countess Hotel for dinner. I heard their banquet is a provincial-level masterpiece. Can we?" I looked up at her. Her eyes were sparkling, waiting for me to agree. I asked who's paying. Arya blinked and said, "Of course it's me paying. You'll cover the bill." Have you ever seen a couple where the girl pays for the date? She was always like this, giving unclear hints about our relationship, making me foolishly fantasize and willingly become her ATM. However, this time I didn't comply with her wish. I said, even if that were true, it's because they are a couple. What are we? And don't mention bringing other classmates along. That's not even a date. Arya thought I was pressuring her to accept my confession, to admit I was her boyfriend. So she looked at me with a pitiful expression and said, but our main task now is to study hard. I interrupted her. Of course I know we need to study, so don't worry about treating anyone to dinner. Focus on your studies. After rejecting her, I didn't say anything more and took out a test paper to work on. In the past, whenever I was upset, I would do a test paper. I never rejected studying, but I had pushed aside my studies for Arya mostly because she was always so demanding, asking me to choose between studying and her. Choose between helping Arya pick a jewelry box for class or listening to the lecture. Choose between helping Arya level up and completing homework. Every time I chose her, I heard the system notification from Arya. The system said, host, detected that Liam refused to treat classmates to dinner at a 5-star hotel for you. We regret to inform you that your charm value has decreased by 15. In the next exam, you will drop 15 points. Chapter 2. Arya panicked. She kept pestering me, blocking me from doing my work. She acted all cute and said, but I've already told my girlfriends that if I break my record this time, I'll treat them to a meal at the Countess Hotel. Liam, if you don't come, how am I supposed to explain it to them? In front of other teachers and students, Arya always played the cold, unattainable beauty. Only with me, she would act this spoiled and playful. Every time Arya acted this way, I couldn't help but soften. I always thought she was special to me, that she had feelings for me, but now it seemed all of it was an act to confirm the effect of the system attached to her. I pretended to be persuaded and reluctantly agreed. All right then, I'll have my dad help me book a private room. We'll go there for dinner tonight. The next second, a mechanical voice sounded and the system said, congratulations, host, for making Liam spend money on you at a 5-star hotel. Charm value plus 25. In the next exam, the host's score will increase by 25 points. Arya instantly brightened up, and then in a sneaky voice, she whispered to me, Liam, Apple released a new phone recently. I smirked and nodded in agreement. At 7 p.m., I showed up outside the luxurious hotel carrying a gift box. As soon as I appeared, all eyes were on me. I heard the system's voice again. Congratulations, host, for making Liam buy a gift for you, causing everyone to envy you. Charm value plus 10. In the next exam, the host's score will increase by 35 points. Besides Arya's girlfriends, there were also 7 or 8 boys and girls, familiar faces from school. Arya was surrounded in the center, holding her head high, and with a light smile she said, you're here, Deskmate. She was always so indifferent toward me in front of others. Her excuse was that she didn't want people to think we were dating and tell the teachers. Looking back, it was clear she never liked me. She just needed my admiration and effort to elevate her to her goddess pedestal. She was never a goddess. It was my affection that gilded her. I took them to the private room we had reserved and sat next to Arya, but once I moved further away, I couldn't hear her system notifications. A guy pretending not to understand asked me why I was sitting next to a girl. Wasn't that a bit too forward? His words implied that I was harassing Arya and clinging to her. I recognized him, Ethan, from the experimental class, a poor student who lived on just 5 yuan a day, 3 of which were spent on buying Arya breakfast. Yet Arya always looked down on him, and in the end, all that food ended up in my stomach. I was about to tell him to mind his own business, but Arya spoke up. Liam is my desk mate. It's perfectly normal for him to sit next to me. Ethan smiled and tried to probe the nature of Arya and my relationship. He asked, really just desk mates? Arya replied, what? Don't tarnish our pure desk mate relationship. She then hooked her arm around the girl next to her and joked, my relationship with Liam is even purer than mine with Chloe. As soon as she said that, a few of the guys subtly smirked. Ethan took a big gulp of his drink and gleefully said, Simp, Simp, in the end you'll have nothing. I was speechless. The others laughed along, and Arya played the innocent, acting like she didn't understand. I pretended not to hear and asked the waiter to take Arya's order, which earned even more disdainful looks from the others. After all, I was just one step away from being outright called a simp, yet I wasn't even bothered. It was as if I had no shame at all. While Arya ordered food, she worked her charm on the group of boys and girls. She said, "Let's get a stew pot. It's really good for our health as girls. Also, let's order some lobsters, 2 each. The boys should try the roast suckling pig. You're at that age when you should eat more meat." She considered everyone but didn't even mention me. The others kept complimenting her as the school beauty, rich and pretty. Arya's face showed a hint of smugness, and she proudly said, "I'm really happy today. You can all order whatever you want. Don't worry about saving money for me." Chapter 3. During dinner, I put some thought into it and finally figured out the source of that strange sound coming from Arya. She had a heartthrob system. As long as a top student acted like her simp, her charm value would increase. Those charm points would then be converted into her scores. Meanwhile, the academic achievers she lured were drained of their luck and distracted by her flirting, leading their grades to plummet. No one suspected her. She was good-looking and academically excellent, so to everyone it made perfect sense that boys liked her and pursued her. It wasn't that no teacher had looked into the decline in those students' grades, but they were all blamed on the useless simps. For example, me. Everyone knew I was Arya's simp. I could go to the girls' dorm to clear the toilets for her. I could break school rules for her. I would be late and stand outside because I was buying something she wanted to eat. Because of simping for her, my grades dropped from being number 1 in the grade to dead last. Arya always said my family was rich. I was an only child, and I would inherit the family business sooner or later. Whether my grades were good or not didn't matter to me. I didn't need to be a top student myself. As long as I hired employees who were top students, that was good enough. Gradually, I started to think that having good grades didn't matter at all, and all I cared about was being with Arya. Now it was already the last semester of senior year. If it weren't for hearing the system's notifications, I would have gone to whatever city Arya was accepted to for university and bought a house there just to live with her. She used my downfall to elevate herself, and I wondered, could someone like her actually have feelings for me? I wanted to know what would happen if I stopped being her simp. The dinner wasn't over, but I left halfway, saying I was going to the bathroom, but actually I just left the hotel. Since I decided not to be a simp anymore, I obviously wouldn't keep paying for a meal worth tens of thousands for people who had nothing to do with me. That was my entire allowance for the day. Half an hour later, Arya finally called me. She called again and again, over a dozen times in total. I muted my phone and didn't reply until 11 p.m. when I texted. "Something came up at home. I had to leave early. I forgot to tell you. You've been calling so much. Is there something wrong?" Arya replied instantly with a voice message. I opened it, and it was her frantic voice as she scolded me. "You're leaving without paying the bill? Do you know I had to ask them to chip in for the payment? Do you know how embarrassed you made me? You said you'd treat." I pretended to be surprised and replied, "You said you'd treat, so why did you make them chip in?" Arya complained. "You left. How was I supposed to pay? Didn't you promise you'd treat us? And what about my gift?" I was confused and said, "I only agreed to help you book a private room, not to pay the bill. And I never agreed to buy you a gift. Can't I just use it for myself? You must be trying to act like the rich girl in front of our classmates, but you want me to secretly pay the bill behind your back? Are you trying to have it both ways?" That message didn't get sent because Arya had blocked me. I couldn't help but smile bitterly at myself. How blind I had been. How did I ever think she was hardworking and cute, and that she liked me? For someone like her, I let my grades slip. I hated myself for it. Chapter 4. The next day, during the break, the group from last night's dinner came to the classroom door to ask me to pay them back. I refused, saying, "Whoever invited them should pay. Why are you looking for me?" They all exchanged glances, and Ethan asked angrily, "You're the one who let Arya treat everyone at the Earl's Wife restaurant to celebrate breaking a record, and now you just skip out on the bill? If you can't afford it, don't pretend to be generous. Hurry up and pay, or we'll tell the teacher." The whistle for assembly sounded across the playground, and they blocked the classroom door, not letting me out. The remaining students in the classroom heard Ethan's words and started gossiping about how I was pretending to be rich even though I had no money. I sneered and pulled out the chat history with Arya to show them. I said, "Arya said she'd treat everyone to dinner because she broke a record. What does that have to do with me? I only agreed to help her book a private room at the Earl's Wife restaurant. When did I say I would pay the bill? She's nobody to me. Why should I spend tens of thousands to treat everyone? And by the way, I only drank a cup of free water last night. I didn't touch any of the food. If you want me to pay, are you planning to rob me on campus? I guess I'll have to call the police then. I pretended to call the police, and immediately they blocked me, saying, Wait, maybe this is all a misunderstanding. A few of the boys pulled Ethan aside, saying, Forget it, let's go ask Arya. This really isn't his problem. But Ethan refused, gritting his teeth and saying, How is it not his problem? He pretended to be generous to please Arya, and now he wants us to pay. I leaned against the classroom door frame, crossing my arms and sneering at him. How did you even manage to get into the top 20 in the grade if you can't even understand simple logic? When I liked Arya, spending a little money to make her happy was my way of passing the time. Now that I don't like her anymore, why should I spend money on her? Do you think I should do it just because you have the nerve to ask? Ethan, angry and embarrassed, retorted. Look at yourself. You can't even score 300 and you still have the nerve to talk down to me? I smiled. From now on, you'd better work harder or you might not even be able to beat me. Ethan laughed mockingly, then turned to the top students nearby and said, Did you hear that? Liam says he's going to beat me. I think he's lost it, trying to chase Arya but failing, and now his mental state is all messed up. The supervising dean, a middle-aged man with a beer belly, walked by the classroom. He saw that we weren't at the track and noticed that only the top students from each class were gathered here with me, being the only slacker. Naturally, he took out his frustration on me and shouted, Liam, what are you doing hiding in here? Go run 20 laps on the track. Dean over 40 had a booming voice that drew strange looks from students passing by. I replied slowly, Sir, they're blocking the classroom door and trying to rob my pocket money. They won't let me go run. Ethan protested. He owes us money and refuses to pay. We're just asking him to pay up. The others couldn't stop Ethan, so they tried to explain to the dean that it was all a misunderstanding and that I didn't owe them money. I ignored them and told the dean, Sir, why don't you just call the police? Let them come and clear this up so that Ethan doesn't keep fantasizing that I owe him money, distracting me from my studies. The dean obviously wasn't going to call the police. After hearing my words, he snorted and said, Your studies? Don't make me laugh. Ethan seized the opportunity to get sarcastic, adding, Teacher, you don't know. He warned me to be careful or he might surpass me. The dean, hearing this, burst out laughing. You surpass Ethan? All you ever think about is early romance. You never focus on your studies. If you actually surpass Ethan, I'll let you be the dean instead of me. My eyes lit up and I asked, Really, sir? The dean replied, As long as you can do it. Chapter 5. Liam, the famous simp at a school, had stopped pursuing Arya and started focusing on his studies. Everyone mocked him and no teacher expected any improvement from him. After all, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Every time I discovered that Arya had developed a closer relationship with another guy, I would start studying hard to show her that I was no longer interested in her. But whenever Arya would pout at me, say something with ambiguous hints, or give me a glimmer of hope, I would drop everything again and start chasing after her. So the teachers and classmates who had hoped for my comeback were all left disappointed. This time, Arya and I had a week-long Cold War. I didn't apologize to her, and she refused to speak to me out of spite. In the weekend's midterm exam, Arya scored 648 points. Compared to her previous score, she had dropped a full 50 points. From first in the grade, she had fallen to 10th. The whole school was in an uproar. When the results came out, Arya was called in by the homeroom teacher, dean, and the principal 3 times to talk. When she came back, she was looking drained and cast a gloomy glance at me. I ignored her and continued organizing my notes. But soon after, the homeroom teacher called me out. In the office, the homeroom teacher, dean, and principal were all seated on one side of the table, looking like they were conducting a serious interrogation. I stood straight in front of them, eyes lowered to look at the tips of my shoes. The 3 exchanged a few glances, and the dean in a sorrowful tone said, Liam, it's one thing if you're not studying, but at least don't affect the learning of others. I looked directly at the dean and asked, Sir, could you clarify who I've affected? The dean didn't answer directly. Instead, he pointed out my shortcomings. I heard you recently got a new phone. Is it the latest model from Apple? Don't you look like a student anymore? I remained calm and replied, The school rules say we can't use phones during class, but they don't say we can't bring them or buy new ones, right? The dean got angry and scolded. A phone is just for making calls or browsing the internet. Why do you need to buy such an expensive phone to show off at school? No wonder you're affecting your Deskmate's learning. I asked, did Arya say I affected her learning? My patience was running out, so I bluntly said, she's the one who keeps asking me to help her play games and level up. She either bothers me during class or disturbs me while I'm doing homework. Who is affecting whom here? The homeroom teacher couldn't hold back anymore and interjected. That's nonsense, Liam. It's not that I'm being harsh, but you've completely lost your sense of self-respect. All you do is chase after Arya. Yes, you came into this school as the top student, but what happened after that? Don't use your studies as an excuse to shift the blame onto other students. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the mix of anger and humiliation inside me, and replied openly. I admit I've done many wrong things before, but now I realize my mistakes. I won't interact with Arya anymore. I will focus on my studies from now on. The principal hesitated, glancing at the dean. The dean understood and started to speak gently to me. We're not saying you can't interact with Arya. People say that girls are sensitive and meticulous. You've been chasing after Arya for so long. Now you just walk away like that. How can a girl handle that? The more I listened, the colder my heart became. I had a faint feeling of what was coming, but I didn't want to believe it. I asked, so what are you trying to say, sir? The dean hesitated, but finally said, after the college entrance exams, I won't interfere with you. Before the exams, try to interact with Arya as you did before. Don't let it affect her studies. I was shocked. Are you all insane? Are you encouraging us to have an early relationship? The homeroom teacher scowled. Nonsense. The principal looked at the homeroom teacher, sighed in disagreement, and then kindly said to me, the school certainly doesn't allow early relationships. It's just that you and Arya have been so close before. Now that the college entrance exams are coming up, you suddenly cut ties with her. Doesn't that seem like abandoning her? Liam, we're asking you to endure a little. Keep a good relationship with Arya like you used to so that you don't ruin her future. Is that all right? I asked, and what about my future? The principal froze for a moment, then said softly, if you truly want to study, no one will stop you. I fell silent. The principal asked, so have you thought it through? I raised my chin proudly, sneered, and said, Arya's future is none of my business. The principal's expression darkened instantly. Chapter 6. Back in the classroom, I continued to organize my mistakes, and Arya handed me a blue couple's pen. I didn't take it. She smiled gently at me and said, Liam, you've been working so hard lately. I noticed your pen is almost out, so I got you this one. If it weren't for accidentally hearing the system's voice earlier, I might have been moved by her innocent girl-next-door act. I took the pen, ran my fingers over the cheap plastic casing, and guessed it was bought from the small shop near the school gate. It probably cost no more than 3 yuan. I asked her, what's the meaning of this? Arya shook the pink pen in her hand, which was the other half of the pair, and said, it's a set. I scribbled a few lines on the paper and said, the ink's too faint, it's not smooth, and the pen casing digs into your hand. It's just a pretty vase that's useless. I threw the pen back at her and said, get something better. Arya was stunned, as if she didn't recognize me anymore. She must have thought that by giving me this pen, I'd come around, keep pursuing her, and resume being her simp. She didn't expect that I wouldn't fall for it anymore. The system chimed in. Host, it has been detected that Liam has rejected the couple's pen you gave him. We regret to inform you. Your charm value has decreased by 10. In the next exam, your score will drop by 10 points. Arya snatched the test paper from my hands and said, Liam, is it because of the dinner last time? I said we were just pure classmates and you've been mad at me ever since. I was just afraid others might misunderstand and tell the teacher. I reached out to grab the paper back, my anger flaring in my chest. I gritted my teeth and said, give me my test paper back. But Arya, with a look of grievance, hugged the paper to her chest in a way that made it hard for me to grab it. Her eyes welled up with tears as she said, Liam, I don't blame you for skipping out on the bill last time. Don't be mad at me anymore. In the next moment, I stood up suddenly, kicked Arya's desk over, and the textbooks and snacks inside the desk spilled all over the floor. The entire class fell silent. Arya stared at me in disbelief. I glared at her, firing questions one after another. Why do you think you can take my test paper? Do you even realize how soon the college entrance exams are? You don't study, and yet you don't want others to study. What exactly is your agenda? Arya awkwardly handed me the paper back, her voice quiet as she said, I was just joking. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? I scoffed and said, who would waste their life on such a pointless joke with you? By the way, with your background, you couldn't even book a room at the Countess's restaurant. If you wanted to treat me, you could have asked me to book a room for you, and I would have asked my dad to help you. But no, you blame me for not paying for the tens of thousands in meal costs, and tell everyone I skipped out on the bill. Arya, we have nothing to do with each other. Stop bothering me for no reason. I sat down and resumed looking at the test paper, adding coldly, and don't come to me with anything again. Chapter 7. During the class meeting, the homeroom teacher moved my seat to the back near the trash can. Not only that, but she also said during the meeting, some students don't focus on their studies and have their minds full of thoughts about romance. Once they use sweet words to win someone over, they then abandon them, causing their grades to drop. Such trash should be with the trash. The homeroom teacher almost called me out by name, and all the eyes in the class shifted toward me. I didn't lift my head and kept writing in my notebook, ignoring them. Seeing I didn't react, the homeroom teacher sneered and said, such thick skin. Let's see how long you can keep up this act. In some ways, my skin really was thick. When I was a simp, I didn't care about the scornful looks of others. Now that I was focusing on my studies, I didn't care about their sarcastic remarks either. At lunch, Ethan came in through the back door of the classroom, saw me by the door, and dramatically covered his nose. Oh my God, it stinks. Doesn't it bother you? I didn't look up and kept writing, irritated. Go away. Ethan wanted to get angry, but when he saw Arya walking over, he quickly changed to a polite demeanor. He said, I'm only paying attention to you because you're Arya's deskmate. Otherwise, I wouldn't care about you. Arya called my name, almost pleading, Liam, let's make up. I'll talk to the teacher and have your seat changed back. I impatiently replied, you can go too. Ethan snapped, Arya, this kind of person doesn't appreciate kindness. Don't waste your time on him. Come on, I'll take you to the cafeteria. As soon as Ethan spoke, I heard the familiar system notification. Detected that Liam rejected your attempt at reconciliation. We regret to inform you. Your charm value has decreased by 10. In the next exam, your score will drop by 10 points. Congratulations, host. Ethan invited you to join him at the cafeteria. Your charm value has increased by 5. I looked up at Ethan and warned him. Are you sure you want to eat with Arya? Don't you worry about wasting time and letting me surpass you. Ethan sneered. Only you would let something like this affect your studies. I'm different from you. I lowered my head and ignored him. Respect blessings. When the housekeeper called me, I went to the school gate to pick up my pre-made meal and headed to the cafeteria. The cafeteria was crowded, and I was looking for an empty seat. Arya spotted me and waved. Liam, over here. Without hesitation, I walked over and sat down, eating on my own. The food made by the housekeeper was much tastier than what the cafeteria offered, colorful, aromatic, and flavorful. In the past, I would have shared most of my food with Arya, leaving myself hungry, but now I ate heartily, completely ignoring the looks from Arya and Ethan. Ethan laughed and said, you kindly saved a seat for someone, but they just eat by themselves. Arya, don't waste your kindness on people like him. He's not worth it. I took a big spoonful of crab roe, savoring it with a satisfied squint, then said, did your family run the cafeteria? Where I sit has nothing to do with you. Ethan said, I just can't stand how you're treating Arya like this. I responded, how I treat her has nothing to do with you. Ethan retorted, a student speaking so rudely. No wonder Arya doesn't like you. I shot back, whether I'm rude or not, it's none of your business. Ethan slammed his chopsticks down, glaring at me with hostility. He snapped, you can only talk big. Let's see how well you do in the next exam. I responded, what I get in my exams is none of your business. Ethan was speechless. Chapter 8. In the end-of-month exam, I improved from over 100th place to 200th. My dad specially hired a student from Tsinghua and another from Peking University to tutor me on Inon. The two of them broke down the high school material and fed it to me piece by piece every day. Fortunately, I had a good head on my shoulders and was willing to put in the effort. After the results came out, my dad doubled the tutors' salaries. Arya dropped from 20th place to over 30th. It wasn't much of a decline, mostly because of Ethan. She could still get charm value from him, but the amount he could provide her was limited. Why exactly, I wasn't sure. Having his fortune stolen, he dropped by more than 30 places as well. He and Arya were both called to the office by the class advisors from 2 different classes. Ethan didn't feel ashamed about it. In fact, he was proud that he and Arya were summoned to the office together for a chat. I couldn't help but admire him. He loved to bash simps, but in reality, he was the biggest simp of all. I had figured out the origin of Arya's grades, a charmer system. She would give her the answers corresponding to her charm value during exams. All Arya had to do was copy them down. This meant that deep down, she was still that naive girl, that spiritual little sister from the start. When the grades were announced, the homeroom teacher's attitude toward me worsened. She called me the class's termite and ordered me to take my desk and chair outside to listen to the lesson. I refused to go, so she stopped teaching. The classmates tried to persuade her, but she was stubborn and refused to listen. She was determined to save face at my expense. After a half-period standoff, the class monitor suggested, "Liam, why don't you just sit by the door? You won't disturb the class that way." I replied, "Why should I?" I retorted sharply, word by word, addressing the homeroom teacher. "Are you sure you don't want to teach?" The homeroom teacher hated me immensely. She said, "A garbage like you who ruined the provincial champion's future should count yourself lucky just to be allowed to listen outside." I nodded. "All right, if you don't want to teach, then don't." I grabbed my phone and left the classroom. The homeroom teacher smiled smugly, lecturing the class not to follow my example and fall into decay. She hadn't even finished the class when officials from the Education Bureau arrived at the school. I stood outside the classroom, watching the homeroom teacher suddenly flustered. In front of so many leaders, she hurried out of the classroom, nodding and bowing as she asked, "What's going on, leaders?" One of the leaders pointed at me and said, "Teacher Song, are you out of your mind? No matter how angry you are, how could you not let the student attend class?" The homeroom teacher quickly apologized. "Leaders, this student has always been naughty and not focused on his studies. I was just trying to give him a little warning." I smiled and said, "Teacher, when you slander someone, remember one thing. There are cameras in the classroom." The homeroom teacher shot back. "So what if there are cameras? What did I say that was wrong?" She was all fierce and domineering toward me, but when facing the leaders, she put on a completely different face, smiling bitterly. "Leaders, this student is notoriously difficult to manage in our school. I really have no choice." The leader cleared his throat and said with subtle hints, "No matter the reason, you can't stop a student from attending class. What's the point of arguing with one student? Why bother?" The homeroom teacher grew more aggrieved and said, "I have a student in my class who was clearly going to be the provincial champion, and now this kid has ruined his future. How can I not be angry?" The leader sighed and became more direct. "You're an experienced teacher. You should know the background of your students. Getting a demerit for this isn't unjust." The homeroom teacher looked stunned. Her mouth opened as if to say something, but she was too shocked to speak. The leader ignored her and kindly said to me, "Good child, go back to class." Chapter 9. Originally, when the homeroom teacher was replaced, the class had a lot of complaints about me, but within a day, the school replaced her with a younger homeroom teacher. Not only was she excellent at teaching, but she also knew how to energize the class and make learning fun. No one ever felt bored or drowsy in her lessons. Gradually, no one cared about what had happened to the previous homeroom teacher anymore. Arya's grades continued to drop, falling to 65th place, and the gap between her and me, once over 1,000 places, had now shrunk to 20. Arya couldn't keep her composure any longer. At the graduation ceremony and Kamingafage celebration 1 month before the college entrance exam, she held up a scarf, which I wasn't sure where she had bought it from, claiming she had knitted it herself, and publicly confessed to me. The school had specifically arranged the Kamingafage ceremony 1 month before the exam to allow students one last chance to relax before fully focusing on their studies. It was rare for someone to confess at this time, considering that if the confession failed, it would not only ruin the relationship, but also jeopardize their future prospects. Arya held up the scarf and gazed at me with deep affection. The surrounding senior students were silent for too long. When they finally got a piece of gossip like this, they screamed and cheered as if they had taken some kind of stimulant. I glanced at her and said with a half-smile, "What are you doing?" Aria's cheeks turned red as she shyly said, "You've always been my desk mate, my Liam. In the past, you liked me so much and treated me so well, but I never accepted your confessions. Now it's my turn to pursue you. It's my turn to confess to you. Will you be my boyfriend?" I replied, "No." The system immediately notified me. "Host, it has been detected that Liam rejected your public confession with all your might. Regretfully, your charm value has decreased by 30. In the next exam, you will lose 30 points." Aria looked heartbroken, tears welling up in her eyes as she asked, "Why?" I said sincerely, "You're not good enough for me." Aria choked back tears, saying, "Liam, I was wrong. After you left me, I realized that I couldn't accept the reality. I couldn't focus on my studies anymore." I replied, "Oh, you really are something." After rejecting Aria, nothing in my life changed. I continued to study relentlessly as usual. I had already finished high school material while revising. My two genius tutors even started teaching me some university-level material. I studied happily and painfully at the same time. In the first mock exam after the Kamingafage ceremony, I placed third in the grade. Ethan was ranked 135th. From then on, I noticed I never encountered the head teacher anymore at school. When I finally saw him, as soon as he spotted me, he immediately turned and walked away as if on fire, his beer belly shaking with every step. However, more impressive than my progress was Aria reclaiming the top spot in the grade. She even broke the highest grade record in the school, scoring 704 points. Chapter 10. After hearing about my results, Aria rolled her eyes and said, "No matter how hard Liam tries, what's the point? As long as I want, he'll always be under my feet." I paid closer attention to Aria and soon realized she was juggling several boys at the same time. These boys were all well-known academic elites in the grade. During breaks, I followed Aria a few times and vaguely figured out the rules of the charmer system. I speculated that the charm system might work based on how well it satisfies worldly vanity. The better it fulfills these desires, the more charm points one could earn. As long as the academic elites were willing to do something for Aria, she would immediately gain a considerable amount of charm points, which could then be converted into grades. This is also why Ethan's charm points were limited, because being with him didn't make Aria seem particularly charming to others. I got the contact information for those 5 boys, created a group chat, and named it the Backup Guys of Aria and Me. Their grades had all dropped to varying degrees. I quickly muted them and told them that if they continued to have anything to do with Aria, their grades would suffer even more. I said, "Believe it or not, I'll be updating Aria's next exam scores in real time in this group. 701 points, 692 points, 705 points. I cursed in the group. "Who the hell is this good at licking? You guys not going to college?" The scores kept updating. Some people left the group, while others joined. 680 points, 666 points, 674 points, 630 points, 650 points, 626 points, 588 points. I sent a thumbs up in the group and said, "Good job, guys. Love the beautiful woman more than the kingdom. Ah." Eventually, the scores in the group stabilized at 523 points. As everyone waited, Aria's score for this exam indeed dropped to 523 points. From being first in the grade to outside the top 100. I unmuted them. Facts speak louder than words. The group fell into silence. After a long pause, someone sent a message saying, "Time to be a real man." After that, they left the group. Once someone started, messages like "Time to be a real man" kept popping up, followed by people leaving the group. Aria's score dropped from 523 to 436, then 368. Word spread, and no one bothered with her anymore. Chapter 11. After the college entrance exams, Aria came to find me and tore off her mask. She bit her lip and said, "Did you already know about the system? Why did you do all those things that hurt others but don't benefit you? Now that I don't have the system, you're feeling better?" I nodded seriously, amused, and said, "Without the system, how many points could you score? 400? 300? Probably not even 200, right?" Aria was so angry that she stomped her feet, wishing she could strangle me. However, Just as the spiritual little sister was charging at me, I tripped her with my foot, causing her to fall to the ground. She lay there crying and throwing a tantrum, accusing me of bullying her. A few male classmates gathered around, and after giving Arya a contemptuous look, said, "Liam, we'll vouch for you. She wasn't paying attention while walking and tripped herself. She deserved it." Someone else added, "Strange, looking at her now, she's not even that pretty. I used to think she was my goddess." After that, the group of us started heading out to eat, casually chatting and complaining about the college entrance exam results. Someone asked, "Which school are you guys aiming for?" Someone else replied, "I want to go to C University. I heard their cafeteria is amazing." Another person said, "But D University has more beautiful girls. I think I'll go to D University." "Are you guys picking schools based on that? Don't you care about the majors?" Someone else answered, "Well, whatever major you choose, you'll regret it later anyway." When the results came out, my score was 717, 4 points higher than my predicted 713, and I became the most unexpected provincial champion in the school. On graduation day, the new class teacher's face was about to split from smiling. She held my hand and kept praising me. "I never expected this. I really didn't expect it. We got a provincial champion out of nowhere. Ha 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 ha. Thanks to Teacher Song. Thanks to the Education Bureau." Before the TV interview, the principal specially brewed me a pot of Westlake Longjing tea with his treasured leaves. He had a big grin on his face, so overly friendly that it made me a bit uncomfortable. He said, "Liam, at first the school was a bit too aggressive, but our intentions were always for your good. I never expected you to be so diligent and bring honor to the school, the teachers, and to me. The school has prepared a generous scholarship for you and is even planning to create an exclusive glory corridor for you on campus, right at the front." The principal rubbed his hands together and said, "We hope you'll speak highly of the school's support when you're in front of the media. How does that sound?" I nodded honestly and said, "Of course, I will express my gratitude for the school's support during the interview." I made sure to mention the school and the principal. I said, "I'd like to thank the school for encouraging me to fall in love early before the exams, all in the name of improving my grades. I also want to thank my former class teacher for making me listen to lessons outside the classroom, letting me enjoy the spacious corridor." I shifted my gaze to the pale-faced principal and smiled graciously. I said, "I am who I am today thanks to my alma mater." Since my batch, a school had completely declined and the city's top school spot was taken over by the equally ranked experimental school. As for Arya, she never showed her face again. I heard she scored just over 200 points, but who knows which school she'd get into. Who cares, anyway?